In this video, I'm going to talk about beveling and the Boolean modifier. Beveling is adding kind of an angled section along the bottom edge, or really any edge of an object. The Boolean modifier is what we will use to make a hole in our object, and that's what we'll use to make, if you're doing a button design, you need some holes in there. So that's what we'll use to do that. So first, the bevel. I'm going to start with this object. It's a little bit easier to see what's going on because these faces are so tall. So bevel is Control B. Oh, sorry. First I have to have something selected. So I'm going to Alt select this loop. So Alt and right click to select the loop around here. And then I'm going to do Control B to bevel. And you can see sometimes it looks like this when you first start, and if you pull away, you can see that it will bevel sometimes very, very far. You don't want to pull so far that your faces start to go inside out. That will make your print not work. So keep an eye on that. I'm going to get myself kind of a little bevel there on the bottom. Before I click, which I already did, by the way, before I click, I can actually scroll my middle mouse wheel, and that will affect how many sections we have here. But since I already clicked, I can do the same thing over here, how many segments I have. So if I raise the number of segments, it makes a nice rounded edge instead of a straight edge. This is actually easier for the printer, so I recommend doing 3 to 5 segments here. The bevel tool basically only does part of the height of whatever face is next to the edge that you select. So if I come over here to this other object, I'm going to Alt select. It'll only do one side at a time. So then I'll Alt Shift select. And now I'm going to bevel this here. So Control B. And you can see that it's very small because it can only do up to the entire face. If I keep going, it's going to start going inside itself. So I'll show you that down here. Control B. And if I pull too far, it starts like overlapping, and I only want to make sure that I pull until as far as I can go without overlapping. And again, you can see there's not much of a bevel there just because those faces are so small. So something that I can do, and it won't work in all cases, but in this case I think it will, I can select a couple of my faces, and then I'm going to do something that's called dissolve faces. So if I do the X key or the delete key, it brings up this delete menu, and I can dissolve faces. And that actually turns that into one face. Let me see if it works on this one. Yep, and then I can do that all the way across. And then if I did my my bevel on that, I would have a larger height to work with. I'm not going to do that this time, but that's one idea that you could try. And next I'm going to talk about the Boolean modifier. So let's say I want to cut a hole through one of my objects. The first thing I'm going to do is decide what shape do I want my hole to be. So normally, I guess we would probably choose a cylindrical shape hole. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually go out to object mode, because when we do this, it needs to be a separate object. So kind of like your cutting shape needs to be a different object than the shape you want to put a hole in. So I'm going to create a cylinder. Here it is. And I don't want it to be that big, so I'm going to scale it down to how big around I want the hole to be. And I'll stretch it out so that it will go completely all the way through my object. And I have a pretty tall object here. This is not really meant to be a button, but I can still cut a hole all the way through it. Okay, so when I look at the top and the bottom, my cutting tool is sticking out. I don't have to make it a cylinder. Maybe I want it to be more of an oval hole. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to select the object that I want to cut a hole in. I'm going to go into my modifiers menu, or pane. I'm going to add a Boolean modifier. I'm going to select the difference, and this is saying what's different between my original object and my cutting tool. Okay, so that's I don't know, it's just what it's called. And then the object is the object that you're going to use to cut, your cutting object. Okay, so you first select what you want to put a hole in, you choose difference, and then you select the object that you're using to make the hole. Okay, so that's the cylinder. And then when you say apply, looks like nothing happened, but if now I move my cutting tool, I have a hole in exactly that shape all the way through my object. You can do that as many times as you need to make as many holes as you need. You can also, you don't have to cut a hole in your object. You can actually just make kind of a cutout. Where am I? So I can put it just partially into an object. And so if you can try to imagine, it's going to kind of nip out a circular shape with a flat bottom. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to select my object that I want to make the hole in. I'm going to add a Boolean modifier. I'm going to say difference and select the cylinder, which is my cutting tool, and then I'm going to apply. And then if I select that, there's my little area where it took that away. If I select this first, I can also, let's see, like it doesn't have to be my cutting tool. I could let the cube take a slice out of this. So I have my cylinder selected, that's what's going to get cut. I'm going to add my Boolean modifier, select difference, and then I'm going to select this cube over here, and then I'm going to say apply. And let's see what happens now. So now this cube was the cutter, and this cube got cut. So there we go. Has the same shape as the roof of this tool, this cutting tool that we used, and then the straight side. Okay, well that is it for bevel and Boolean.